Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. And I think we made a mistake on the initial message because this is the 2017 World HPCC System. It's international, isn't it? There are plenty of people from many other countries. Today, we have I think, a very exciting day ahead of us. Greatly selected content and densely packed as well. And we have people representing a number of organizations, institutions, and companies around the world. And certainly many people from our RELX organization and LexisNexis. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for the effort that you made to get away from your normal activities to spend some time with us and with other community members. Remember that the most important value that we all get from this is the possibility to interact with other people that might have useful and possibly interesting ideas, and perhaps could be the beginning of a collaboration or something even bigger. So welcome to everyone. And first of all, I want to thank our sponsors, and thank you, Cognizant, for your Platinum sponsorship. Thank you, Cognizant. Thank you, Infosys, for your Gold sponsorship. And thank you, Datum, for your staffing sponsorship. We really couldn't do this without all of your help, and certainly our sponsors have helped a lot, but we wouldn't be able to do it without the help of many, many other people. The vast majority of them in this room, but there are many that are not even in this room today, but have helped make this day a reality. So without much preamble, and just because I have 5 minutes, so I can't linger around, I want to give you a few things around the logistics. Certainly, you should have, and I left my phone on the table, but you should have your WOVA application where your agenda is. How many of you have your WOVA application loaded and with the HPC Systems agenda? Can you raise your hand? Oh, shame on the other ones. We are going to have exciting raffles, and if you don't have your WOVA application, you might not be able to win the prizes, so you better do that. Go load it right now. Download WOVA app and look for the HPC Systems Summit 2017. That's quite important. First item. Second, we will have 4 tracks throughout the day, and we will start with HPCC Systems in the real world track. We have great talks at the beginning, and I think we will start with a nice bang. But then throughout the day, we will have breaks in between these 4 tracks, and we have a lunch break in the middle. I want to remind you that for those, how many of you have been here last night during the dinner? Can you raise your hands? Quite a few. How many of you have not been here? The others that haven't raised their hand before, yes, good. Well, for those that haven't been here, there are a couple of things that we did last night that I want you, not just you, but also everyone else, if you want, to take a look and perhaps get interested. 2 things. One is the robots. There are 2 teams from 2 schools. This is elementary, middle, and high schools from South Florida. One is American Heritage, and the other one is Nova Southeastern University School. Both are here. Both have been helping demonstrate their robots. And we have the robots in the back of the room. You can see a fancy golf cart, which is an autonomous golf cart that was completely built from scratch by these kids. And we have the World Championship winner VEX robot that will be also demonstrated here. So throughout the day, during the breaks, please take a look. We will have some of the videos as well that they recorded that will play in the breaks. And for those that haven't been to breakfast today, that would be bad. You need to eat breakfast. That's healthy for you. There is a room on the back where all of the posters from yesterday are still in display. So for the ones that didn't know, we did a poster competition. We had 10 posters. And by the way, we had the judges going yesterday, and we have the winners, but I won't say anything until the time comes. So please go see the posters. Those are all great posters, lots of good content there. And again, you can use this as a reference to know who is doing what outside of your standard realm or domain, and perhaps again, start another collaboration or discussions or get more involved with some projects. So please go see the posters when you have time in the breaks. That is good. There is no much more to say for today other than we want to welcome also our live audience. We have, again, live streaming, as we always do. So welcome everyone watching this video. I know that several people have been watching this video since the very beginning because I had, unfortunately, some people that contacted me because they couldn't make it in person for other personal life conditions, but they were very excited to be able to watch this day throughout the YouTube stream. And outside of even those, I know that many people will be watching this throughout the months to come, as it has happened to other previous days. So, and of course, if you are back home tomorrow or the day after and you are trying to remember, oh, what happened that day? Was there something there was something that I was interested in and I didn't remember who the person was, go watch the video. All of the links to those videos will be in our webpage. We have information in our WOV app. If you haven't downloaded your WOV app, you should download it now. Please enjoy the videos and give us feedback. Any feedback is always good. I think we stepped up every year on this conference. But it has been thanks to your feedback, thanks to all of the suggestions and criticisms that we got throughout the previous year. So please provide feedback, interact with others, and enjoy. So without more preamble, and now I am out of time, so we need to move to the next speaker. We have a first speaker that will open this day, as I said, with a bang. The speaker is a Cognizant speaker. His name is Paul Röhring, and he wrote a number of books in addition to all of the other things that he does. One thing that is interesting about his life is that he worked for Disney before. So, and you can see why this is interesting, but I think of Disney as these Imagineering people that come up with new ideas and implement those in a way that is even believable, right? Because everything that is in Disney World is real, as you know. Anyway, so he is now heading this director of a lab, innovation lab in Cognizant, where they are building, shaping, or reshaping the future of work. And he wrote a book lately, and you will see the posters on the back, about what to do when machines do everything. And this is quite an interesting challenge because machines are now, they are answering your questions. They are giving you information anytime you want. They might be driving your car. They might be providing knowledge. So what's left for us? Is that a bright future or is some sort of a doomed future for every one of us and we will be obsolete? And I think Paul is one very qualified speaker to tell us what to expect. So Paul, please come to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this on? Hello. Yes, it's on. Hello. So when you do these things, you usually get an email from somebody that's in charge. And the one thing that this email, they usually says, show up here, don't be silly, blah, blah, blah. So, but this one had the best line I've ever seen in any welcoming email. It said in big black letters, do not rush the stage. And I thought, this is awesome. I've never done this before, where there's a threat of people rushing the stage. And I thought, this is going to be a party. So thank you very much. We're thrilled to be a part of this. Like Flavio was saying, we want to talk about, very briefly, what to do when machines do nearly everything. How do we win in the age of intelligence? So let's jump in. So if you've heard the news lately through any channel, whether it's TV or click on a link or whatnot, you might come to the conclusion that apparently we're doomed, right? I don't know if we're as doomed as machine gun carrying woolly mammoths, but things aren't good. And why do we say that? Well, we see images like this, really scary robots, and you see headlines like Stephen Hawking predicts robot apocalypse coming within 100 years. And he's got to be right? Killer robots will leave humans utterly defenseless, warns professor. This is not a good news story. The middle class, completely done. It's going to be completely, if you're not one of the 0.001%, you might as well hang it up because it's going to be completely inequitable income distribution. And yet we're surrounded by amazing technology. In fact, technology that you help make. But that raises some questions. Is this good? What are we doing to our society? Are we really changing things in a positive way, or are we creating a new class of techno-zombies walking around into street signs? Privacy and security. Well, welcome to a technology-fueled nudist colony. If you don't quite get the point, I've included a helpful Venn diagram that shows the difference between the internet and privacy, which if you're following the news, again, Yahoo, everybody got hacked, which is kind of good, right? Because then nobody has to add anything up. You just look at how many people you have, and that's how many people got hacked. But so you're starting to see headlines like this, serious news, right? Not just silly things. If you're not paranoid, you're crazy, from the Atlantic. So maybe it's time to wrap ourselves in tinfoil hats. Everybody's watching and being more intrusive. And then also, this happened. I have no explanation. But regardless of where you are on the political continuum, and that's my favorite picture ever, that's Boris Johnson, who was on a zip line over London. If you know the story, he got stuck. So that's him making the best of a bad situation, waving the Union Jack around, hanging upside down almost. But so regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, it's remarkably disruptive, right? There's no, this is what's happening. It's just a fact. So from a personal, organizational, or social perspective, many of us may feel stalled. When you look at all the news and see all the things that are going on, you may just feel a little bit stuck. Hey, the rules are changing. What does that mean? And what do we do about it? Well, hang on. The silly walk, very good. Guys, you're on it, right? Don't rush the stage. You might call us crazy, but we see these signs actually as a good thing. And we see it as a coming boom, actually, in business and technology. Because artificial intelligence is the great story of our time. And it doesn't have to be a catastrophe, and that's what the book is about. What to do when machines do more and more of nearly everything. Now, AI is accelerating across every industry. Probably you guys, you're switched on, you know what's going on. 8 out of 10 hedge funds, the top performing hedge funds, are now either fully or partially AI driven. This is where the quants live. More than 220, there's a great car in the back, right? A golf cart. More than 222 million miles have been safely driven by autonomous vehicles. 82% is about the accuracy rate of a radiologist. A good radiologist is going to get it right about 82% of the time. 99.6% of the time, that's the accuracy rate of AI assessing images. And then 2 hours versus 2 weeks, that's legal due diligence being done by automation, right? So that what the bot can do now in 2 hours used to take paralegals and young attorneys about 2 weeks to do it. And so industry after industry, sector after sector, AI is coming in and changing the fundamentals of value creation. And this is creating mixed emotions. Is this a capitalist dream or a labor nightmare? On the one hand, there's excitement. This is technologically amazing, and it shows the art of the possible, and this is a good news story. This is where the optimists come in. But also, there's a sense of fear. Are we going to get laid off? Are company structures going to change the same or stay the same? What will the industries of the future actually be? Will we have jobs? What's going to happen? So it's this balance of excitement and fear. And right now, in this point in history, many, in fact, I would say more people are actually afraid of the new machine. AI is seen as something negative and scary. And yet, we're optimists, maybe not as optimistic as this little guy, but we think, actually, this is a good news story. And here's why. This is a great quote by Brian Arthur from the McKinsey Quarterly. He said, by 2025, the second economy, that's his term for the digital economy, will be as large as the 1995 physical economy. So think about that. That's the entire history of humanity. The first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, the history of the formation of accounting. That has created, by 1995, a massive physical economy. And his assertion is in only 30 years, the size of that overall economy will double. And so he's a pundit, right? He's a futurist. And so even if he's half right, this still changes everything. This changes how societies work, how capitalism works, how we work. And that's a positive. This is about a growth story. This is Sundar from Google saying, we're heading for an AI-first world. And you're hearing the same refrain from technology leaders, banking leaders, insurance leaders. Every industry, every sector recognizes now the opportunity that AI can provide. And why we think this is true is because of where things are right now. So people point to Silicon Valley and say, well, hang on, digital has been going on for decades, right? Well, kind of. This is Kara Swisher, and she said right now the digital economy is primarily, what she says, big minds chasing small ideas. The same idea framed by Pierre Azoulay in a great quote. He calls it the Internet of Things your mom won't do for you anymore. So, and you know what these things are, right? These things are fun, right? So I can exchange messages with my family on Facebook. I can share cat pictures on Instagram. I can share videos. I can buy a robot that keeps the cat off the couch. I can book a cab. I can book a hotel room. These are things that we're familiar with, right? I can watch Netflix going 130 miles an hour on the Acela line from DC to New York. And that's fun, and it's great. It's amazing technology deployed, and it has changed our expectations of what technology brings us, but it hasn't changed the fundamental elements of our society. And this is where it gets really interesting. So we're moving right now, today, moving from digital that's fun to what we call digital that matters. And this is where it gets really exciting, because how we heal ourselves, how we bank, how we insure our families, how we govern ourselves, transport ourselves, entertain ourselves. All of these elements are open, and we're in the very early foothills of the great digital revolution. And that's a huge amount of opportunity and growth for companies that are ready to grab this new reality, because it's all powered by AI. It's all powered by the new machines. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm not rushing this stage, and this might be interesting, but what does this mean to me and our business? In the book, we talk about something called enhancement. So what's enhancement? So the big question that comes up whenever we're talking about AI in every sector, in every part of the world is, well, what about jobs? Isn't AI going to come in and absolutely destroy everything? What are humans going to do? Well, it's a good question to ask, but the better question is not, will this job be automated away? The question is, will this task of this job become automated? So every job, every knowledge work job, and that's really what most people are afraid of, because we have a pretty clearly defined understanding of what physical robots can do. They're welding things and building cars, and so there's physical robots. They're moving around huge containers inside the Amazon distribution centers. The question is really about knowledge work. So if you think about any job, any knowledge job, it's comprised of many different tasks, right? A lawyer does a lot of different kinds of things. They read, they make arguments, they have questions, they do legal due diligence. Some of those tasks are highly automatable, but the overall job of a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher is not overall comprised of work that is easily automatable. And this is a nuance that the hysteria side is actually missing, because most knowledge jobs are comprised of more complex work, not all automatable. And so our take on jobs in AI is not a doomsday scenario. Now, that's not to say it will all be fine. We're clear-headed about, and there's a section in the book called There Will Be Blood. There will be jobs that will be replaced by AI. The best predictions that we've been able to find by doing our own research and looking at everything that's written in the market is about 12% of jobs will be replaced by the bot. And that's a lot. that's hugely disruptive, will cause massive amounts of pain to the families that it impacts, and we cannot just wish that away. That is a huge number of jobs. The bigger picture, however, is more nuanced than that and actually more positive. We believe that more than 75% of jobs will be what we call enhanced, and new jobs will be invented. And that's what I'll talk about now. In the past, we thought of robots as something on the left. It was very sort of anthropomorphic and usually pretty scary. It didn't usually end well in science fiction when those kinds of robots showed up. But the robots now, as you know, is more on the right side. That's what a real knowledge robot looks like. That's much more disruptive than the robot on the left. Now, we know a lot about physical work enhancement, and this is, of course, Ripley getting ready to defeat the alien with her front-end loader, and so she is physically enhanced. Now, in the age of AI, it really comes down to knowledge work enhancement, which is the kind of things that you do. That's the kind of software tools that you build. This is a great shot from Philips. So I talked a little bit about a radiologist. This is a radiologist working with the machine, not instead of not being replaced by the machine. Now, this artificial intelligence is now leading to real business, and you know some of these will be very familiar to you. These systems are now everywhere. It could be in Predix in the lower left-hand corner. That's a screenshot from Predix, which is GE's Industrial Internet of Things platform. That's actually managing through output on a windmill farm. The upper left-hand corner, you probably do recognize that's a screenshot from Lex Machina. To the right is Palantir, which is a terrific platform that pulls information from a lot of disparate sources and allows a trained analyst to ask really important questions. And they use that system to do everything from relief management to terrorism tracking to fraud detection, and that's Palantir. So whether it's those systems, Risk Solutions, Apple Pay, McGraw-Hill has an education system called Alex. These are AI systems now that are coming into the market and driving real business across every sector. And when you want to find targets for where to apply this AI, here's a hint: look for the large cubicle farms. Because this is usually, not always, but usually highly routinized, data-intensive work that is, in many cases, a ripe target for that kind of enhancement. So what about invention? This is new jobs. This is stuff that's coming up. This is a great quote from Alan Kay, one of the greatest computer scientists anywhere. And he said, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And that's what's happening right now today. And it's based on something that we call the budding effect. There's a little history lesson. This is an image of a guy called Edwin Budding, and he invented the lawnmower in Gloucestershire in 1827. You may be, and so it's kind of a silly story. He was actually embarrassed. He was so embarrassed about what he was doing. He was making, he was tinkering in his, I don't know if it was a garage, but he was creating this lawnmower, and he would do it at night because he was so embarrassed that his neighbors would see him making this funny contraption, the role of which was to create flat grass. That's what a lawnmower does. Now, when he invented the lawnmower in 1827, he never could have imagined the downstream impact, the economic impact on jobs, employment, and growth that a lawnmower that created flat grass would lead to. So in 1827, for example, he never could have imagined that it would lead to the creation of a $620 billion sports industry that's all based on flat grass. Without a lawnmower, you don't have football, you don't have soccer, you don't have cricket, you don't have tennis. Now that $620 billion a year industry could never have been imagined by Edwin Budding in 1827. And it's a stunning lack of imagination to think today's technology will not lead to a similar output. So Stephen Hawking, my mother told me, my dear long-suffering mother told me, never pick a fight with a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. But I'm going to do it because I think Stephen Hawking is really, really wrong. And so is Elon Musk. This is not the era of a Terminator. This is an era of AI being applied to new ideas, new work, and creating job growth. Because things sucking is the real mother of invention. That's what drives change. Something we don't like, something that's not working. And the future is ours to create. And by 2025, we're going to have all kinds of new jobs that we can't even imagine right now. In wellness, moving from episodic to always-on wellness systems. That's going to rewire 20% of the US GDP. That's creating jobs. Biotech is going to be bigger than information technology. If you don't believe me, when Bill Gates was asked at a speech in Harvard, they said, hey, you know, you already invented Microsoft. It already exists. So if you were a Harvard student and you were going to drop out today, what would you go do? And his answer was biotech. It's a huge growth opportunity. Virtual and augmented reality, Wells Fargo, so it's not just a serious bank is looking at these markets, and their expectation is that AR and VR will be bigger than the economic impact of television and movies in just a few years. That's how fast it's growing. Abundance markets, as prices go down, more people can get more stuff. That's how come we can get bananas and wine made from France, and we can travel on airplanes, and we can all have smartphone devices that includes metals from all over the world. That the lowering of the cost has allowed abundance markets to emerge, and that will continue to happen in industry after industry. Smart infrastructure, as infrastructure begins to be replaced and also enchanted with sensors, building that digital twin infrastructure is a huge opportunity for value generation and job growth, whether that's white-collar jobs, such as an architect, or blue-collar jobs, somebody actually building the buildings, or no-collar jobs, building the code around every road or every building. And finally, next-generation IT. Just imagine what will happen when quantum computing comes online, when we continue to have better data management capabilities, when the horsepower of a computer is thousands or tens of thousands of times more powerful in a few years than what it is right now today. And these are all opportunities for job growth. So the AI era, the digital economy, is not some sort of dystopian techno nightmare where the only job left is oiling and maintaining the Terminators. It's this. And we get to build it. And so what do we do now? Well, two things I'd like you to remember. Two things that are the most important parts. One is never short human imagination. It's been a bad bet throughout history, and it's still a bad bet. So Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, they're asking important questions, but they're coming to the wrong conclusion because they're not taking into account that we humans have lived through these shifts before, and anybody that shorts human imagination has been wrong. And second, AI is simply the next generation of productivity tool for us to use. We get to build it, we get to decide it, and a lot of the hysteria in the news today is about us negotiating our terms with new technology. What do we want from security and privacy? What do we allow socially in terms of using new technologies? How do we negotiate these things with our children, with our families, with our colleagues, with our companies? This is going on right now today. And so becoming digital is actually a rocket ride. It could be the biggest opportunity since the Industrial Revolution, and it's ours to shape right now. We're going to look back at this point in time and say, we were the founders, we were the explorers. And it's all up to us. And yet we have some big issues to contend with, but people have been worried about these technologies for thousands of years. This is a great quote from Socrates, who said, writing will create forgetfulness in the learner's souls. He was arguing against the use of the written word, which was a technology a few thousand years ago. Plato argued for it. And now, thousands of years later, who would argue against the use of the written word or the wheel? That's where we are today. So fear not the bot. Robots destroying the middle class, political upheaval, a winner-take-all economy, that's the fear speaking. The future is already here, and it's not bad at all. In fact, you're helping make it. We get a front row seat on the most exciting business ride of the next century, and it's ours to take. So with AI, automation, bots, and big data, and people, there are no stop signs ahead except what we put in front of ourselves. And so when machines do more and more of nearly everything, there will still be a lot for us to do. That's the truth. And if this is not a song of hope for our economic future, nothing is. So let's get on with it. Thank you very much. I'll be around if you want to talk about this. I know I'm right bang on time, so I'm not going to be able to take some questions, but I will be around later, and we have some books available if you'd like. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. That was a great talk. I thought it got me energized. I didn't mention before, but Paul's latest initiative is called Skynet. He's building a little company to, oh, just kidding. Jokes aside, we have now a nice segue into our first HPCC system-centric talk. This one is around HPC systems and mobility. And it's not a tracking company. It's not that we are going to put an HPC systems cluster, a Thor cluster on a truck and drive it. This is about onboarding mobile applications on HPCC and enabling mobile systems in HPCC. And for this, we have a great speaker. We have David Souls from Infosys, which is our gold sponsor, that will introduce us to the developments they have had over the last year or so in this area, and how they are envisioning driving this evolution towards supporting better streaming applications and mobile applications on HPCC. So help me welcome David to the stage.
Appreciate it. Hello, how are you doing? Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for allowing us to be part of this event that you have. Infosys has been a partner with LNRS for, I think, over 6 years now, as well as with Relix for over 15, so we're happy to be here and participate with you guys today. Paul, great presentation, and I don't know whether Trish planned this or not, but we now are sort of seeing two sides of the individual, right? We saw sort of them from the job side. Now we're going to see what we're going to do with all that money that they're going to make and look at them from the consumer side a bit. Let's just go ahead and jump in. As we look at the digital consumer today, and we look at what's happening in the marketplace around digitization, as we're seeing a transformation of how companies are interacting with consumers, that is affecting how we operate our businesses. So if you take a look at how a combination of new technologies and different ways of thinking and operating have changed things, take a look at Amazon, Uber, Airbnb. Those are companies that have sort of turned the entire business process on end, created a whole new gig economy. And so we have a number of changes that are taking place from that side on a macro level and affecting how that consumer is interacting with your company. And when we take a look at the consumers today, we say, what is the consumer today focused in? What are they wanting to know? And how do they respond, right? So if we take a look at just a couple things around consumers, they're a lot more technology savvy than they used to be. If we just think back 10, 20 years in terms of, ATMs were just coming out on the marketplace, right? Now we have smartphones and all these different devices. If you take a look at the population in terms of what people are expected to do and what they have been doing from a technology standpoint, it's increased across all demographics. We're seeing an increase in mobility, not only in people being more mobile, but also in terms of mobile devices. So as we look at, I think a recent report came out and we had 50 to 64-year-olds, 75% of them had cell phones, smartphones. And it's interesting, it's an interesting number because that's the same number for 13-year-olds to 18-year-olds. So we're seeing the older generation and who is going to be moving on in age, as well as the younger generation coming up is definitely involved with mobile devices. We're seeing Amazon does almost more, they're doing more shopping and purchases, people through their mobile device on Amazon than they are on the desktop. The other thing that consumers are looking at today is experiences. So they're not as focused on price, but they're focused on the experience. So if you take a look at I'll use Amazon again, because everyone likes to talk about them. They create a frictionless environment for you to be able to buy products from them, but they're not always the cheapest. Actually, I was just recently looking at a product, and it was $3 less at the store than it was on Amazon. But it's easier to buy it on Amazon because you just click the button and it just shows up at your house, right? So we're also seeing a number of things in terms of how vacations and all types of products are now being marketed as an experience rather than an individual, maybe the attribute of the product itself or the price, because consumers now are more focused on the experience that can be provided to them than sometimes the item itself. So if we sort of try to boil that down, what is it that consumers want? Right? They want it immediately. They want it now. Instant gratification. Everyone wants things quickly. And we can take a look at that. The recent example is Equifax, right? We had the cyber breach, and they lost everyone's information. They now have a website you can go to, and you can sign up for their credit monitoring service. But when you do, then you have to wait 48 hours for a confirmation email. Then you can choose to lock your credit account, and you have to wait 48 hours for that to happen. Okay, if you go on the internet, people are complaining all over the place that it takes 4 days to do this, which is ridiculous, especially when you think about they're just basically flipping some bits on their database in the back end. And just to put that in perspective, we'll go back to our big online shopper. You can sign up, create an account, and have a physical product delivered to your doorstep that same day. So being able to support this immediacy and support the real-time engagement is going to be a critical piece of working with customers in the future. The other thing is this personalization piece. As we look at personalization, and that ties into the experience, what are the different things that we need to be looking at, and how do we personalize the experience with our customer, right? So how do we use deep analytics? How do we use mass quantities of data to analyze our customers and understand what they want before sometimes even they know what they want? The other thing that consumers want is control. So even though we are giving lots of control to computers and devices and technology, and AI and driverless cars and things of that nature, we're also seeing consumers wanting to have control over their data, how they view that data, how they manage that data. They also want to have control over their devices and how those devices operate and work. So if we take a look at those things and then we try to figure out what do we need to support this new consumer, right? Let's try to narrow that down into a couple small areas, right? So differentiated experience, right? That's the number one thing. How do we uniquely present our product or service in a way that that customer says, this is something important and different, and it actually meets a need that I have, right? You can go all the way back to the iPod. You can go to how Marriott now is marketing their vacations. You can take a look at how Airbnb works and how they've changed their model over time to support customers, how Uber and Lyft operate, and how they're now actually tying into the Apple Maps app on your phone and things of that nature to try to create a much more seamless, frictionless process. The other thing that's key and part of sort of why we're here today and what we're going to demo is around real-time data, right? If we're looking at mobile devices and trying to support this future customer, real-time data is table stakes, right? So if you take a look at online shopping for the past couple of years, I would say when I was doing e-com sites years ago, being able to provide available a promise or a ship date for when that package arrives at your house was something that people were differentiating their experience on. Now, that's standard. Everyone expects that. And if you don't have it, if you buy something from some site and you don't have that kind of visibility, you're sort of like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on, right? And actually, some research shows people won't buy from that site. The other thing is this self-managed interface, right? How does the customer manage their own interface? And this can extend all the way from, simply from changing the theme on the site to favorites, to being able to view and use the data that your application creates in a different way. So you see a number of aggregator systems out there, different kinds of platforms. Infosys has a platform around aggregating data from wearables and presenting that in a different manner in an aggregated format. You have a number of different types of views and things that customers are using apps on their phone to look at data in different ways, feeding through the HealthKit application. Datanami recently mentioned that this real-time data processing won't be a nice to have that companies use to differentiate online. It's going to be a matter of their digital survival in terms of being able to support the customer immediately and instantaneously. Especially if we think back to the previous slide, where a couple of the main things they want is immediacy as one of the top items. So when we were talking with HPCC and trying to think about what we wanted to try to show at the conference, we were working with the team and came up with, we're going to put together a demo and focus on this real-time data, which is going to be a key component of any sort of consumer user application as we go forward, especially for mobile. And we said, let's take a look at it in healthcare, since that's a key area for LexisNexis. And how does that manifest? Some of those things that we just talked about, what does that look like in healthcare, right? So self-management, right? In today's insurance world, you have to be able to manage your insurance yourself to some extent, right? In terms of the doctor you go see, in terms of your pharmacy prescriptions. I don't know how many people in here use GoodRx to do pharmacy prescriptions. Anybody? Okay, I suggest you try it. So, for example, on my Aetna, like when I get medicine for my kids, if I use my Aetna insurance, it costs sometimes more, 60, 80 bucks. Use GoodRx, it's actually less, right? And you just you show the pharmacist the code, and they key that in, and you get the lower price. That's online. And it's an app on your phone, and it gives you real-time data as to the pharmacies around you and what the prices are of your medication at those pharmacies around you. So you can pick the cheapest one. Online research, obviously, that's a pretty common one. Everyone knows that. People are researching their illnesses and their doctors online, but we're seeing a lot more focus on that in terms of some of the work we do in healthcare to provide a better ability for the consumer to do online research on the insurer website rather than going to third-party sites. Remote interactions. This is also something we're seeing in healthcare. Just from, if you take a look at some of the portals that are going in place today around various doctors and hospitals in terms of being able to email and communicate with your doctor remotely. I don't know if you guys have done any of that kind of stuff in terms of follow-ups, as well as there's a teledoc application. So for 40 bucks, if you're sick, you call the doctor you use your phone to connect to the doctor, request an appointment, have them call you. They call you on your phone right away. They can FaceTime you if you want to show them how sick you are. And they'll prescribe you medication right there electronically. It'll show up at your pharmacy, and you go pick it up immediately, right? So now you have, you're not waiting to go to the doctor on Tuesday while you suffer through with Tylenol or whatever the case may be. Actually, my wife used it while we were in the airport getting ready to go to vacation in Key West. She started to feel bad. She didn't go to the doctor. Then, of course, it hits the morning we're leaving, right? So she does that in the airport and phones the prescription in to the pharmacy in Key West. She got the medicine, and the vacation was not ruined, right? So, those kind of remote interactions and some of that immediacy and also the control issues that we talked about before. And that sort of ties into the application. So we're seeing a lot of apps coming in on the phone, a lot of things around what the phone can do. For example, my father had some heart surgery. Years ago, he had the EKG thing stuck on him, and he had a pack he wore, had to go to the doctor once a day to download that information. That was now able to, you're now able to do that on the phone for $99. You can buy a product, hold it on your phone like this, get an EKG. It'll upload it immediately. They'll do an analysis and tell you whether it was normal or not. And talking about wearables, you know, obviously the folks in here might have diabetes. You can do glucose on your phone. You can also wear a device on your body to measure your glucose continually throughout the day. You can also, and obviously in the wearable space, we have Fitbit and Apple Watch and what have you. There's a couple other ones that you guys may not like, Lumo, which helps you maintain your posture. It's a small device you put on your shirt or on your body, and it helps you remind you to stand up straight. So if you have some back issues or what have you. So a number of things that come out in this space. So what we decided to do was we took the concepts of what's coming out for HPCC systems for IoT, and we said, how do we create an app so that we can start using and playing with some of this real-time data and real-time processing right now, right? So what we did is we took a iPhone, connects to the Apple Watch. We read heartbeat data off the watch. We push that into the HealthKit app on the phone. And we also, over Wi-Fi and cellular, if necessary, we push that to an HPC systems platform in the cloud. You know, we're making use of the remote access. We're getting, you know, some of these things the consumer wants: real-time interaction, real-time data. They're able to self-manage this, and it's personalized to them. So we'll just drill into the app very quickly. If we take a look at the application, obviously there's a number of things folks can do here, right? You can pull the profile data from HealthKit. We'll drill into reports a little bit later. There's other things that could be built. We see an update as, you know, when we last updated this app, but the key thing is at the bottom where we're going to record the pulse rate information. So we go ahead and hit that. And now what we have is our screen here where we're able to see that we have the watch connected. We see the green watch icon on the phone. So we're ready to go. We'll go ahead and hit start. We'll start pulling in data from the watch. We see that we have a heartbeat data coming in. We have a green icon, plus we see it coming across on the screen. So the user's able to, at this point, you know, they can enter a description, what have you, and they're starting to record heartbeat tracking information here. Now, what we did with HPCC is we used some capabilities through Roxy and the query platform to actually post rather than query to retrieve data. And so about every 30 seconds, what we're doing is we're pushing all of the heartbeat data we've captured into the cloud. And obviously we get a message back from the cloud that says, hey, you know, this is the data we got, to confirm that. So we're actually, at this point, and I know we're running a bit of an animation here, but we have a real app that runs and executes this, and we're working with the team to see how we might be able to release this to you guys. But this is actually pulling this data in and sending it to the cloud every 30 seconds or so. Then we go ahead and stop that. We take it back to the main menu, and then we can drill into reports. So now we have the data that's been put up there. We don't have to wait for load times and various other analyses to be run. We can come right into reports right away. Say we want to pull up information for the past couple of days here. We select a date range. We now do another call. Now, the data that we post up there goes in, we create an index on the instance, and we assign that index into a super key. So when we do the get call, we'll actually do this call, and this call accesses the super key and is able to pull that data down immediately. So now we're able to get that data. We do the call. We get the response back. This data comes in. We're seeing it in JSON. It can be in XML or whatever you want. Pulls that data in and then populates a graph on the client's phone to show how they want to see that information. So the key thing here, obviously some of this stuff is fairly standard. We're using some standard application app dev techniques. But the key here is the way we use these calls to allow you to start doing real-time processing today and start testing out and experimenting with how you might be able to create apps and create mobility capabilities today with HPCC. We'll hear some more about that a little bit later as well. from some of the other presentations. The other thing I wanted to touch on quickly as well was this information that we're loading into the device over here on the right-hand side. You can see we're putting that also into the HealthKit app, right? So if I want to view my heartbeat data, I don't have to use the HealthKit app. I can use any app on the phone that accesses HealthKit to view that information. As you also notice, we had the blockchain logo come into play. So as blockchain becomes available on the platform, we'll also be able to feed into that and take advantage of the ledger and advanced journaling capabilities that the blockchain ledger provides and the security there. Just a couple things about Infosys on this slide as well. We use the HPCC Center of Excellence that we have. So while we also help HPCC as a strategic partner in terms of development of the platform, we also work with them in terms of implementations with clients and what have you. We have a mobility center of excellence that helped us create this app. We used some of their capabilities as well to pull this together. And we help from a digital strategy standpoint with customers, Costco, Walmart, maybe some of you might have heard, Aetna, what have you, Lexus. If you're using the Lexus connected app on your phone, that was built by us. But we help folks from beginning to end pull these things together. So we'll be around later today and happy to talk about what we've pulled together. We can also have some of the dev guys and the tech guys that actually created some of this available to talk at a later time. We can set up a call with them and they can talk you through how we pulled this together so you guys can start doing real-time data with mobility as we go forward. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So on that was a good presentation on the latest trend in self-assisted medicine is self-surgery. It seems that there is a company that will send you a toolkit with some knives and some other components, and you can do this from the comfort of your kitchen. See, I think it's a good value proposition. I wouldn't attempt myself, though. Anyway, so the next speaker, and this is an interesting topic. As you can see, we are segueing, we are shifting into more technical talks on the HPCC side. The next speaker is Adwait Joshi. He's a little bit of a practical visionary. He's a technologist at core. He's been with technology for 20 years, or almost 20 years. And he has done a number of things outside of technology, so a little bit of a Renaissance type of person. He founded a non-for-profit to distribute Indian music, and he built something that now is the biggest distributor around the world of Indian music. So that's a quite interesting tidbit of his personality. But beyond that, what is very interesting about this next presentation, which is about using HPCC in a practical application in the financial services industry, is the fact that he took a problem that he saw in an industry that he has been involved with for several years, and he took HPCC as a tool and put them together to build a solution, a very efficient solution with a very simple approach behind the scenes. It's a little bit of this appliance that will do KYC in a way that makes it far more effective for their customers and also a lot more cost effective too. So I want to welcome Adwait then. We'll hear all he has to say about this solution and how he has been embracing HPCC to deliver this to his customers. Adwait.
Check, mic check, can everybody hear me? All right, thank you for the introduction, Flavio. My name is Adwait Joshi, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called DataSeers. And the way we classify it is it's basically an HPCC systems appliance for the fintech industry. All right, so the backstory. So literally, a few years ago, I was looking for something cool. And in January of 2014, I met Flavio. And I I don't know if you recognize the picture, but Dr. Freytag is here. I had to Photoshop my face on his face because I don't have a picture with Flavio. Good Photoshop skills, right? September 2016, I actually attended a class by Bob Foreman, who's here, and that was me. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? I mean, ECL is hard to learn. I can't do this. And I almost gave up at that point. March of 2017, I met the three stooges, as I call them, none other than Arjuna, Dan, and Raja. And they helped me shape this platform. They helped me a lot with ECL architecture, and we had several meetings at LexisNexis to go over everything, all the problems that I had. And fast forward to now, I'm a happy customer, right? And I'm a happy entrepreneur. So what was the challenge, right? The challenge was the V4 conundrum, as most people may or may not know. It's the velocity, variety, veracity, and the volume problem. So in the financial services industry, right, we are faced with a huge challenge of handling large amounts of data that's moving fast, it's different formats, and it leads to a multitude of problems, right? So data is ingested, and everybody does this in a traditional BI way. Even if they use Hadoop, they're still doing all the ETL. They're bringing all the data in. They're putting in a data mart. And they have multiple sources of information, and data gets transformed every way it goes. And so it leads to erroneous results. Data is replicated within multiple systems. So they have one system for fraud, one system for reconciliation, compliance, BI, and analytics. And how many times have you guys gone into meetings where somebody shows something and you're like, well, where did you get that from? My data shows something different than that, right? It's a very common problem that occurs in the industry. So that was the biggest challenge that we had. And there is today in the financial services space, there is not a single system that does this all. So what was our solution, right? It was just shy of magic. Thanks to HPCC systems, we handle volume. So, you send us hundreds of thousands of files, and we get them ingested in a matter of minutes. We can handle the velocity, right? As much as fast you can send it. Send it to me every minute, second, whatever you want. We handle the variety. So we are now capable of ingesting files from a lot of different processors, networks, and networks like Visa, MasterCard, Pulse, and so on and so forth, and we can ingest them into our platform without any problem because there is a standard set of library that imports all these files in. And veracity, right? It's a single source of information. All of this information is ingested within a single platform. And so what role does the HPCC cluster play? Currently the solution is very simple. Files arrive in the landing zone. Within a matter of seconds, they're sprayed and ingested in Thor. And several standard reports are exported out and desprayed to the cluster. So one of the things that Flavio mentioned was KYC. It's such a common problem that a lot of companies do KYC on their customers, but there is a process that you have to implement to continuously do KYC on your customers to make sure that they're still good, I still want you on my platform, and so on and so forth. So, we are working on implementing a backend connection so that anybody who comes onto our platform, we can actually fire off a call to LexisNexis and bring their information in and constantly improve our source of information within the system. We also apply, data profiling algorithms to the files and output any issues with them. So this all happens within Thor. And, of course, the Roxy queries provide the ability to search through the data. So, we had some challenges, like I mentioned earlier. Some of our challenges were, identifying the correct hardware configuration because we sell an appliance. So you're not downloading a piece of software, installing something on top of it. You're actually buying the entire hardware platform. It goes out as a cluster. It's pre-configured. You just bring it in and put it into your infrastructure and give it an IP address, and it's ready to go. So the biggest challenge was working with the hardware vendors to come up with, well, what kind of configuration is going to work? What do I need? Do I need a smaller 8-core machine, or do I need a 24-core machine? And do I need 16 gigs of RAM, or do I need 512 gigs of RAM? It was a big challenge for us. The smallest appliance, it's a 2-node cluster. And the way we are looking at it is an active-passive Thor and active-active Roxy. And Dan, who is here, who had to write some specific code for all of this to work, because that's not a standard implementation of an HPCC systems. We uncovered some platform bugs, that existed in the system, some bugs that were fixed that came back, and we were constantly pushing the envelope of HPCC. And we had to do some customization in the ECL Watch UI because, when customers log in, we wanted them to have a white-labeled approach where it was a DataSeers solution. And at the end of the day, we had some unique requirements that tested everyone's skills. In fact, one of the things that we had a conversation with, and Dan told me that he had to really go back and think about how to do this right. So that really tested people's skills because we're using this in a very different way. In the end, it was nothing we could not overcome, right? Everything was possible. So let's talk about the seers in the DataSeers. So as you know, the concept came back from DataSeers as in somebody who can see, somebody who has the vision of seeing through data. So we have a fraud seer, which is a hybrid machine learning and rule-based engine that detects anomalies in transactions and predicts fraud. We have a recon seer, which is like I call it a SQL base because it's easier for people to understand. We don't use SQL, obviously. We use ECL. But it's a SQL-based engine that oversees reconciliation of cards, accounts at unprecedented speed. So when you have 100 million customers that are coming in and they're transacting on 15 different platforms, how is the money flowing from one system to the other system? We can easily reconcile all of these platforms within a matter of seconds. StrataSeer provides a predictive engine for analytics, general analytics of what is this customer trying to do? He has done ABC. Can I market to him? Can I not market to him? What is his next predicted behavior within my platform? And compliance here is, again, it's a rule-based engine that oversees compliance aspects such as BSA, BSM, AML, and we do all of this on a daily basis. So hey, this person just performed this type of activity. I need to go and file a SARS on him on FinCEN, or I need to file some different types of reporting from a FDIC and OCC perspective. So those are the 4 seers that we have in the system today. And at the end of the day, it's a very simple architecture, right? There is a landing zone, there is a Tor cluster, there is a Roxy cluster. Data goes through a security layer and comes out, in terms of all these seers. So the whole technology is extremely simple at the moment. So we are a platform as a service. Like I said before, it's available on-prem. You can hug it, hold it, kiss it, kick it, whatever you want to do, right? So it's an on-prem solution, and banks love it. Banks love it because their money is cheap. They want to capitalize it, not operationalize it. And if you mention even the C of the cloud, FDIC will throw you out, right? They don't want anything to do with the cloud right now. So it becomes an easy sell for us. You can bring the appliance in, and you can lock us out of it. The platform is obviously fully PCI compliant, and it's available to as small as a 2-node to as high as a 10-node cluster. And the way we have done it is we have, based on the amount of data you're pushing through and based on the amount of transactions, we can go small, medium, large, or extra large machine, which is purely a compute and a storage, and then we can scale vertically with the number of nodes. And the financial model is really simple. It's a per month platform as a service model, but we only do a 3 or a 5-year term so that we can support our customers right. We can make sure that their hardware is not going to break. We can make sure that everything is going to be done the way it's supposed to be done, and they can constantly receive updates. Having said that, we have some future roadmap, and I know I'm breezing through my presentation a little bit faster, looking at time, but I'm pretty sure you guys might have questions. So we are currently experimenting with Elasticsearch and Kibana to see if that would actually give us the visualization components that we are looking for. Again, working very closely with Dan on that. We are looking at some machine learning algorithms, trying to work with some universities to get some students out so that we can write some specific libraries around what we are seeing. There is no standard rules out there today which cater to the industry, and we are right now focused on a very small segment of financial services, which is prepaid cards, which is any of your cards that you put money on and then you can reload. So there is many providers out there, and the industry is supposed to grow from where it is now to $3.1 trillion in the next 5 years. So it's a huge industry, and that's where all the fraud's occurring, right? You have a card where you can load money on. You can put money on somebody's card out in Seattle, and he can go buy something. So there's a lot of fraud, compliance aspects. People are loading money internationally. These cards are the cards that the terrorists use to fund stuff. So it's a fun industry to be in, but it's highly regulated, and you want to make sure that everything is done right. So speed and speed is key. And you need to be able to make decisions fast, and you need to be able to see everything. You need to be able to link all the data. We are looking at Kafka from a perspective where if we use Kafka and the HPCC IoT platform, our thing is, can we put the device in front of the transactions? Right now, we are the back side. The transactions occur, and we see them later. But if we flip it around and we have one device at the back which digests after the fact, can we put a device ahead of time which is in line of transactions, and can we make it stop? And can we create a generic platform where we would be able to create a fraud engine just like an Actimize would or somebody else would? So that's something that's in our future roadmap that we are looking at. And this is our company info. Currently focused on the financial services space, mainly prepaid. We are only 6 months old. We started in March of 2017, and we are already in production right now. We are working on filing some patents because we have done some unique things that we feel that we can patent around the processes and on utility on what we are doing. All of our seers are being filed as trademarks because they're unique in what they do. And none of this would have been possible without the HPCC systems, and specifically, Flavio, Arjuna, Trish, Dan, and Raja. So having said that, that's it. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I want to open it up. If not, then I'll give you guys 15 minutes back. Ready to go? Perfect. Get back on track. Thank you.
There's a way to get back on track.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, this is always needed. This was very good. I thought the one line I did like a lot was the one about kissing your HPC cluster. So have you kissed your HPC cluster today? That's a good tagline, right? Kiss your Thor, kiss your Roxy. Well, anyway, let's move to the next one. And for this one, we get still another view of the financial services industry and the possibility of building solutions for them. In this case, we have Anirudh Shah from a company that builds another type of KYC solution. Anirudh has been around also in technology for a very long time, and he has built expertise in machine learning and text analytics particularly. So you will see now another point of view of what can be done in this space, particularly when you try to truly know what your customers want and who your customers are. So I want to welcome Anirudh to the stage then, and we'll see what he has to say. Anirudh?
Thanks, Flavio, for the nice introduction. So this talk is mostly about my love affair with HPCC, and which started 5 years ago, when HPCC open sourced it. And interestingly, it's been like a torrid affair. But I just wanted to say that I really love HPCC. It's like the best platform on the planet, especially for crunching huge amounts of data. And it has enabled us to basically take a variety of products to the next level, and which would not have been possible if we were using any other platform. So starting out, I just wanted to give you a brief on Trilok Labs and how we got here and how my love affair with HPCC started. So 4 years ago, my co-founder and I, we had just finished another startup, and we were moving from Glasgow to India. And when we moved back to India, we were constantly bombarded with SMS spam, and it was just terrible. We were getting 20, 30 messages a day, and we couldn't focus on work, and we couldn't turn it off because in India, at least back then, there was no WhatsApp, and SMS was the primary medium of communication. So, what we found was it's 2012, and you should not have to suffer through spam. So then then we started asking the question, how do you basically prevent spam from happening? How can we leverage the expertise that we had built in machine learning and AI, and be able to apply it to spam, or to basically help marketers target the right kind of people with the right kind of messaging. And so from there, that basically started the journey for Trilok, and we worked with a wide variety of industries like telecom, content, e-commerce, and so on. And then a couple of years ago, we started working in the financial sector, and we started working with banks. So one of the first engagements was with HDFC Bank, which was it's the largest private bank in India, and there, they wanted us to automate their marketing platform, right? Which was essentially they were actually manually running SaaS, and they had a team of 50 people basically grab the data manually, put on their individual systems, and then actually process all of this data. And it used to take them a whole month to actually do this. And so we came in there, and we built a solution around HPCC, which was, so we created an automated automation layer, like a data processing and a data sanity checking layer. And we went down from 30 days to 4 days, and that system was built on just 10 desktops. And so this is in production. It's been in production for the past 2 years, and because of the enterprise-grade nature of HPCC, it's been quite stable, and we've had very few problems. So that basically got us started, and the engagement with HDFC, and subsequently we started doing other projects with them. And one interesting problem that they were facing was how do you basically prevent churn from happening on digital banking? So their churn rates were 20 to 30% month on month. So 20% of their 10 million customers were not logging in onto their digital channels, and so that was a problem they wanted us to solve. So when we looked at their approach, their existing approach was, okay, I'm going to give an offer to these guys to log in, but training your users to by giving them an offer doesn't really make sense, because you're training them to do the wrong thing, because subsequently after a month or two, when the offer is gone, they don't have the reward anymore, and so the habit doesn't stick. So that's when we realized was the approach should be from a customer's perspective is how do you get the customers to get interested in your product, right? So then we basically started seeing from the humongous amounts of data that we have, and we saw that if you are constantly using the product, and if the number of times that you use the product increases to, let's say 5 to 8 times a month, then you become a habitual customer, right? Then you start using the product on your own without any external input. So this is what we noticed, and in other words, people who use the product often enough, they are more likely to become loyal customers, because you have increased the perceived utility of the product in the customer's mind, and now the customer wants to use the product rather than you prodding them, right? And in all of this, what we have seen is the entire landscape of loyalty is changing. Like David was talking earlier, customers don't want spam. They hate spam because spam interrupts their life, and it basically takes us away from what we are doing. And what customers want today is they want conscious engagement. There was a study done by Accenture, and in that study, what Accenture found was 81% of the respondents said that they would be loyal to a brand if the brand was there when they needed them, and they didn't bother them at all when the brand wasn't needed. So this entire landscape and the expectations of customers are changing. You cannot be in this space and try to force something on the customer, right? And if your engagement is not personalized, and you don't know what the customer really wants, and you don't have a sort of individualized onboarding plan for the customer, then it's really hard to have loyal customers, right? So I think it's time to reevaluate irrelevant marketing messaging and the whole reward-based promotional systems, so that we go from trying to lure the customer with a carrot, and rather than focusing on that, we shift our focus to something where we are educating the customer about the individual features of the product and how those features will help the customer. So we developed an AI-based system which basically sort of creates an individualized path for each customer, right? It basically guides the customer through this journey where the customer is discovering the product feature by feature. And it's sort of like, this, we've created a system which basically reacts to the user, so it's almost like it's playing a game with the user. Where the goal of the game is to basically create a habit of using the product so that the customer finds utility in the product and is able to figure out which features are useful. So we basically take them through this through a process of disrupting their existing habits and creating new habits. I'll go into a bit more detail in my case study on what exactly we did with HDFC Bank. So coming to our tech stack, right? We are essentially using HPCC at our core. We have an automation layer that we have built using Airflow, and again, and we had to create some really interesting algorithms from scratch to be able to process this humongous amounts of data, right? So we call this product Habitual AI, and it essentially basically helps customers build habits. And with HPCC system at core in production, now what we are seeing is that we can personalize these recommendations. Within 6 hours, we're able to give output to the customer, and this is being done on, again, a really tiny cluster, right? And we are processing more than 4 terabytes of data on a weekly or a daily basis. So this is this is sort of like my why I think that HP systems can really take it, because it's almost you're helping to save the earth, right? Because it's efficient, it doesn't consume that many resources, so you're actually burning less power when you use HPCC. So now I'll dig a little bit into the case study of what we did with HDFC Bank. So these are the list of features. As you can see, these are the standard features. So every bank has provides these features, right? So what we do is, rather than saying that if you log into digital banking, I'll give you a $10 Starbucks coupon. What we're saying is, why don't we educate the customer about the features of the product itself, right? And we are able to dig down and process the data at a very micro scale, which allows the marketing messaging to be very, very precise and relevant to the customer. So here you can see it's sort of like a habit formation path where you have an existing user. Let's say if you take number 4, the user has been with the bank and he's been engaged with the bank, and he's already using the bill pay service. So then now what do you do? So the next thing that Habitual AI recommends is basically he should just do something as simple as checking his balance on digital banking. So now what happens is you might think, okay, why would I want to check balance? One of the things that we have found is we trust the AI, because the AI is looking at millions and millions of different paths that customers take, and it's figuring out the right kind of features that a customer needs to be exposed to and start to use those features habitually, so that eventually he'll become a habitual user of the product, right? The idea is to basically stop when the customer doesn't need to be recommended anything. So that's why we also give something like a no recommendation. You need to stop here, and the system keeps reacting to the user. So let's say if you recommend the user to make a purchase online, and the customer doesn't do that and it does something else, immediately the recommendations change. And it's a self-learning system which uses reinforcement learning in a very different way to basically arrive at a system that every time it runs, it basically learns from its mistakes and it keeps improving on its own. And all of this, again, would not have been possible if we didn't have HPCC at our core, because HPCC plus ECL really allowed us to explore the feature engineering and allowed us to really iterate very quickly. So we were able to create this system with just a tiny team of 4 people working on this over 8 months. And we're using, in addition to HPCC, we are also using Python and TensorFlow and C++, the base libraries that we custom created for this. And if you see the results, all of this has provided tremendous results for the bank. They have seen a 47% reduction in churn. And what they're seeing is when you educate the customer about the product and when you talk about specific features of the product, then there is an increase in engagement. So the people who followed the recommendations, there was a 145% increase in digital banking transactions. And there was an increase in the monthly balance as well. So what we are seeing is there is an input, and people are actually embracing the product, right? Because you have now educated the customer about the product. You have educated the customer about individualized features of the product, right? And you have created a custom plan, a personalized plan for each customer. And because the plan is personalized, you guide the customer through a journey wherein the perceived utility of the product continues to increase in the person's mind. And then after 2 or 3 months, the customer wants to use the product rather than you prodding him. So yeah, that's it. That's my, in terms of the next steps, we are planning to, because right now this is an on-premise solution which is created for banks, but now we are moving this we're in the process of moving this to the cloud, wherein it can be applied to a wide variety of software use cases, like such. Say if you have like a CRM system which is really complicated and you want to guide the end user of the product through sort of like a personalized tutorial, wherein the tutorial gets created on the fly and guides the user so that he starts using the product on a regular basis. And it can be used for like preventing churn or moving customers from a free version to a paid version and so on. So the number of possibilities are endless, and I think with the support of HPCC, I think we can take it to the next level. Thanks. Since we have time, I'm open for questions. Okay, thank you. Oh, there's.
AI rather to say what kind of method of AI you use, of machine learning you use in order to implement it. Is it one of the standard ones, or is it something new? Is it black magic you started to develop? So I would like to know a little bit more, because there seems to be always the gap between what you describe and then the platform. There's something in between, and when we talk about it, I would be interested to know more how you close that gap.
Right. So see, the thing is, when we started out, if you take the problem of churn, you can take logistic regression and just solve it using that. But what we found was that a one-stop off-the-shelf solution is not going to like cut it in this case, right? If we really wanted to understand how to build habits, the system should be able to actually understand in what sequence the user is using features. So what we do is actually we do a longitudinal study for 24 months where we basically we analyze customer sequences in which they are using features, and then using that as a base, then we find out people who have built habits on their own, right? And so then we use the sequential pattern mining. Using an off-the-shelf solution like sequential pattern mining wasn't viable here because of the tremendous amounts of data we had and the limited computing power. So we had to come up with our own custom developed algorithms to basically figure out. So it's not off-the-shelf AI. So it's something that we basically use concepts of reinforcement learning, Q learning, to basically apply it to this problem in like keeping the hardware constraints and the constraints of the data in mind. I hope I was able to answer your question, Christoph. Okay.
But that's okay. We can do this offline.
Sure, pleasure.
That was good. That was very good. I took just one number there. Reduce your churn by 50%. That is a huge improvement. We are doing some work internally with our FIDO platform to help this type of things. But I did like a lot the way he's using this historical information on the customer activities to try to suggest what they should do to get more engagement. And I think we could leverage some of that in our own platforms in LexisNexis too. But I had a question for Anirudh, and I didn't want to ask it, but I thought that one way to increase engagement would be to use cookies, but not web browser cookies. I mean treats. They work with my dog. Can we use that with customers too? Maybe it's a controversial thing, so I wouldn't propose it. But anyway, so our next talk is Fujio Turner. And for how many of you have been here last year? Can you raise your hands? Quite a few. Well, then you might know Fujio by now. He's been with the community for a very long time. He started our West Coast meeting groups, and he's been an HPCC and database and data and technologist expert for a very long time. So he's bringing now some applications of HPCC and Couchbase, which is the company that he works for now, into the mobility space. And I think we'll have a great talk. He always has great talks. So thank you, Fujio, and welcome to the stage.
All right, thank you everybody for having me here. Thank you, Flavio, for introducing me. So this is my second time on stage. I'm so excited to talk to you about something that I'm really passionate about, databases, right? So a little bit about myself. I've been into open source software for a long time. Couchbase, right, the company that I work for, is open source. That's why I got into it. I supported Couchbase at Couchbase is one of Couchbase's biggest customers for about 3 years. And then I left, particularly because of their mobile solution. It's finally sort of, I would say, really matured. And I got into HPCC systems because it was open source. And so I was into that system 2013 about. So I've been an active community member, trying to contribute code, making plugins for the platform, trying to encourage you to make these great plugins so that I could use those pieces of information, right? So, but the presentation is going to be about a complete mobile and data platform in enterprise using HPCC systems and Couchbase too. So I like a good analogy, right? So to sort of explain things. So first thing I'll talk about is ice. So long time ago, this is how you used to get ice, right? It was sort of regional and seasonal. Let's call this ice 1.0, right? So then ice 2.0, right? Centralization of ice, right? So closer towards the user, more populated areas, they chop it up, deliver the ice. So then a raise of hands or somebody answer this question, what's ice 3.0 here? Anybody out there? Yes. Yes, this is exactly right? Ice in their hands, ice inside your home. So what I would ask is, what was sort of the bigger driver for why this all happened? Why did 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 happen? Why was that? Anybody? A little bit. Anybody else? sort of, sometimes people sort of overthink it. It's real simple, right? People want ice. Right? People want ice. So if I were to take the same analogy in our industry, right, it would look like this, right? Mainframes, the server, and sort of the mobile world right now. And what's the driver behind all of this? It's pretty simple. People want data, right? Right? But I've always seen technologies like these as sort of a series of overlapping curves, right? So you had your mainframe curve, your server curve, and you have your mobile curve. And we are not in the middle of this curve yet. We are just nearly at the beginning of this curve, right? And what's really happening is, right, the world is really shifting from sort of the browser, the web, interacting through the web via the browser on your laptop to the mobile device, right? This is sort of what's happening. And then in the future, what we'll see is sort of an augmented reality, right, where the computers project holograms that you can interact with games or with family members, all connected to your device with wearables, connected to your self-driving car or connected car, all the way back up to the cloud, right? So this is sort of the client side, or what's going out there, the IoT side, I guess. You have all connected to all parts of your life here, right? And one of the questions that I get here is security, right? So the data at rest on those devices needs to be encrypted, right? And that information is going to come through this internet. So security is important over here, HTTPS, TLS. And right, web servers are stateless. So all that information needs to be stored somewhere. So usually they go through some tier of caching in or sources of records that are stored somewhere. And then data security is important over there. Data at rest, right? Encryption of disk. And maybe even encryption of even field elements, right? So on the mobile space, right, I would say mobile is sort of the primary information hub and sort of definitely the primary social hub. And right now it's sort of secondary purchasing hub. I imagine very soon closely we'll see it as your primary purchasing hub. And really the driver from IoT is the better prediction of predictive behaviors, both on a micro and macro scale. So they want to be able to take that leaking faucet that's leaking like very dangerous chemicals, and they want to be able to drill down to that on the factory level or an industrial level. And they also want to know how their larger plants are doing. So both macro and micro are important. So that ties into safety and automation and also customer review, right? We want to know what's going on. So the problems that they have is mobile, right? I want to sync data to and from. That's easy, right? You would think so. Speed of data, nobody wants data slow. And inaccurate or stale data, right? Nobody wants to have an incorrect balance or have an old message or an incorrect message. If more practically, if you are in a hospital, you don't want to have what the doctor told you to do on that patient. You want what the doctor currently is prescribed for that user, right? So it's important. And the IoT side, the problems it has is collection, transport, storage, and analyzing that data, right? But if you really look, a lot of these problems are sort of intermingled. You're solving a lot of the same problems, hopefully. And what most organizations have, they have sort of a traditional transaction database, right? Where you're incrementing and decrementing something, usually some type of currency, right? And then you have your analytical database, right? And then to be able to communicate with all these things outside, you have a myriad of search, indexing, caching, some real-time analytics, some query, mobile, IoTs, right? Those are all those things that are sort of not those things inside your organization. So what does Couchbase do, right? So I found out that the what and how and why actually are very important, right? And actually, when you talk to members, they'll tell you exactly what they'll do. They're really great at that. But I found that the why is actually sometimes very important too, because when your why and another company's why are pretty similar or aligned, then it's a real technical question of how and what to do, right? So why does Couchbase exist? We exist to help businesses revolutionize the way they engage with their customers. That's good. Well, how do you do this, Fujio? We consolidate different technologies and solutions to solve complex problems easily. Well, that's nice. And what do? We have this thing called an engagement database. It's a memory-first architecture which is built on a single simplified data platform. So if nothing else, you guys know what Couchbase does, right? So what does our data platform look like? At the core of it is a distributed architecture, right? It's scale out. There's a masterless system. Memory first, where you can do millions of operations through KV, query hundreds of thousands of SQL queries per second, unique. Full text search, mobile, and IoT is built in. And coming here in the near future is going to be analytics. And security throughout the whole stack. And we sell software, right? So any hardware, any cloud, any container, right? And then big data integrations are really important for our customers. So instead of having something that looks like this, what you can have is something that looks like this. So I talked to a lot of people, right? A lot of companies, and they're saying, I want fewer things to manage, Fujio. Because then with those fewer things, when things go, it's simplified, and I'll have less problems, right? So the mobile space, the problems that we see in the mobile and IT space, right? There's a solution there's a great solution that everybody's here for, that everybody knows and loves, HPCC, right? Storage and analyzing, right? And then what about these other things? Well, Couchbase can really help you with those. But not every piece of information from IoT device is JSON, because we naturally talk JSON. So the guys here at HPCC Systems have been working with us. So we're still the speed layer in this side of the solution, but they're also able to pull in and collect information that's non-JSON too. So users and customers, right? Or use cases and customers. So here's one of our customers, right? I usually don't like reading slides, but one of the interesting things that I found, and everybody sort of knows, that he predicts and he knows that there's about 6 billion IoT connected devices, and about 3 years is almost going to triple, right? And he says, Couchbase is a great technology to use that they're using right now to help with their needs, right? So what is their IoT solution? It's called ThinkSpace. So Verizon, right, they actually own their own infrastructure. So they have both wired and unwired devices that they get the information in from, and then they get that information in, and they need to do real-time analytics, device management. So IoT is great, and everybody thinks it's a one-way street. And that's not true. Sometimes it's a vast majority of it is a one-way street. But what happens when you need to tell X amount of millions of devices, hey, I need you to change? And not everybody's connected, right? So how do you handle that? And connectivity manager. So on the right side here, you'll see exactly how Verizon as a business unit interact with them. And they actually sell this solution to outside their organization. So the pitch is, give me your IoT data, and you can use our platform to do deep analytics and drill down to even on the event level of what's going on inside. So on the left here, sort of the business requirements, right? Real-time visual analytics for IoT devices, right? They want to have a fast time to go to market, support the 3 V's, velocity, variety, and volume of data. They always have to have their system always up, right? So they have to have both an active data solution. So I should be able to direct my traffic right to any piece of information that you want, and they all should get replicated throughout my whole data centers. And real-time notification and alerts, right? You give me all this, I give you all this IoT data. I want to be able to be notified and alerted of these different things. And sort of the functional part of it, right? They need a predictable performance. They need big data integration. They need cross-data center replication, horizontal scalability, flexible data model, and powerful monitoring. So how does Couchbase sort of help with that? Once again, really great story of consolidation, right? So all these parts here, we have a solution for them. So one of the things that I found pretty interesting when I went to go talk to the people at Verizon is I said, what was your most important reason why you chose us? And I'll ask you guys, why do you think they chose us? Which one of these is sort of important to you guys? Which one you think is important to them? Anybody? Okay, nobody. Okay. So one of the things that they found that was more important to them than any of these other reasons was this: time to go to market, right? For them, they wanted a solution out the door in 8 months, not in 18 months. Partly for them, it was critical for them to have a solution to be able to be one of the first players in the IoT market. And they're currently in production right now, being able to service their own internal customers and external customers, right? So another customer of ours is BD. They're one of the largest medical device manufacturers in the world. They've been around a long time. And a use case that they have with us is, right, they have medical devices that take your blood sugar glucose level, right? And then, right, you need to adjust it. And these things are real sophisticated, right? They even have little dials and gauges where you can adjust the amount of insulin that you get. And they have a mobile app, right? It connects up to there, and it tells you how much of that glucose level has been. So they don't have to, it makes it easy for them to not have to write it down. And then the device themselves, they have a Bluetooth cap where as soon as you take off the cap, it tells the device how much was injected, what dosage, and when. Right? So all that, and also the app lets you even take pictures of your food. So what you can do is you can sync up that information to the cloud, and then your physician can sort of have a real smart conversation with what's going on with your diet and give you better treatment options. And how does Couchbase help with them? Right, we have a mobile embedded database, NoSQL, on the device, and then syncs up to the cloud. And we have a very powerful storage and SQL engine, which interfaces inside of their web app. Right? So lastly, which is the last customer that uses us, Coyote. Maybe you might not heard of them. They're really big in the Europe, right? And they are great at, they have a paid subscription for this turn-by-turn service. And what they do is rely on a lot of the community members to do it. They have a little under 5 million users. And it's pretty simple what they do, right? There's a car, and it syncs up with telemetry from the device, right? And then nobody likes speed tickets and speed traps, right? So you might want to tell other people about that. And that person behind you, right? Now they know about the speed trap. And so how do we help them? Right? Couchbase is both on the phone and back inside the device. And we're actually working with them in their OEMs of car manufacturers to embed our small little database actually inside the devices. We're going to be shipping a C++ core soon. So what I say is, when I show this graph, one of the questions I say is, how are you going to tackle this blue curve? Can your current infrastructure sort of tackle this thing? And then, what's your strategy? What's your plan for moving from the red curve to the blue curve, right? So then, what I normally say is, right, and I say, what you need to really do is, I would say, encourage you to sort of think, not sort of project where your company is going to be. And there's a great quote that got me started in getting to HPCC, actually. And this great quote right here. Skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck has been. And maybe people are big hockey fans, but Walter Gretzky. So who's Walter Gretzky? He's the father of the legendary Wayne Gretzky, right? So some great piece of advice that served him well. And that's it, guys. That's all I have for you. I have some time. I love taking questions. Please have questions for me. Who has questions for me? Come on. Anybody? Come on. This mobile stuff is so cool, right? No? Okay, well, thank you. If you have any questions, talk to me on the side. I'll be here, and I'd love to talk to all of you guys if I can. All right, thank you so much.
Well done. Very good. Always very interesting and quite enjoyable. This is a nice area because it shows how you can integrate two different technologies, apparently disconnected, Couchbase on one side, HPCC on the other, and build a cohesive solution. Certainly kudos to Dan and Arjuna working to help build some of the glue, and of course Fujio has a lot of that credit as well. But being able to bring capabilities that weren't available before in HPCC or at the point where it can be used, and now leveraging the capabilities that Couchbase has in this real-time side of things to get these new applications off the ground. So I think this was a great way to present a new way to repackage HPCC and its capabilities to an area that is going to grow. It's only going to grow, as Fujio said. We are just in the initial part of the curve. Now, with this said, this concludes our segment, our block for world applications for HPCC. We will have a break now. After the break, and I want, if we can, to be all in the room at 10:40, we will go through the academic applications in HPCC. We'll now also cut our live recording and streaming, and we'll start a new segment once we come back from this break. So if you, the break is going to give you about 15-20 minutes. Please use the time to see the robots if you want to talk, get some coffee, and certainly, well, and restrooms, as someone might be suggesting, but certainly the posters. Go to the other room where the posters are, take a look, see what all of these people have done. Some of these posters are really, really mind-blowing. So please take a look, and when you come back, we'll have another block of very interesting talks. Thank you.